Nice. So I think we should start. Who
Sweet,
cares?
let's do it.
Everyone will catch up. But yeah, man. I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of cool people on the Fishman Go Fishman Live with us the past week. We've had Jen Majura on. We've had Ryan Fluff Bruce. We obviously are having you. We're having Toast Nabasi, and then actually we're going to be doing Devin Townsend on Monday.
That's awesome.
So we kind of have just people have been filtering in. We've been basically discussing stuff about their lives, what they're going through. Obviously, this is a very difficult time for everybody, both socially and economically, and social distancing. This is a whole new time for us. So, I mean, at this point, we're not here. Fishman's not here to like sell people product, or I mean, obviously we're always down to talk about Fishman Fluence pickups or our acoustic guitar brand and stuff like that. But what we really want to do is just get to know you as an artist. I mean, there's a lot of times where I feel like you're performing. I mean, you're definitely connecting with your fans, and same thing with our other people. But like, no one gets to really see the real side of our lives, right? And how we do things. So I mean, you just had 2 kids. I know that like you're in Florida, you're doing your thing, and obviously you tour just like every one of us. Like, what are you currently doing right now to keep your family and your friends safe during this time?
We're being proactive. Like the way I look at the situation, I think a third of the world is thinking it's the end of the world, which is not. A third of the world is thinking that this is, quote, as bad as a common cold or the flu, which it's not. It's worse. And I think it's getting in that middle ground and understanding that there is necessary precautions that should be taken. I was reading a study that if everyone kept 6 feet apart, as we all know, for 14 days and stayed in, this thing would completely go away. And it's amazing that even with that being known, we just can't seem to keep people from stopping to do things. Like they just keep hanging out at beaches. I just posted a picture of a bunch of people human centipede lined butt chugging Miller Lights in the beaches of Florida. And it's like, come on, man. If you just give us 2 weeks and we could be over this. This could go away. And now it's just going to last longer. And I don't know how long that's going to be. But that's just a testament to the human race.
Yeah, you're invincible. And especially at that age, you're invincible. But like those kids will go home and give it to their parents who are like in their 60s and 70s. And that's where this is, if there's anything that is a takeaway from this, it's just, you have the opportunity to have 2 weeks off of work. All you have to do is stay away from people. It's not that hard.
Just play video games and pick up food and drink in your house. And for some reason, people are like, no, but this is a hoax. I'm going to go out and make people sick, and I don't care. I saw a video of some kid licking a bunch of stuff at the pharmacy. It's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
It's hopefully, but that's why with my socials, with our Twitch page, with my community that follows Trivium, I just try to keep a positive example out there and just say, social distancing, whether you think it's extreme or not, let's be proactive. For those of you that have to work to get yourself food, to cover the bills during this time, just please be safe. And it is unfortunate that I don't feel like this is a political thing. I feel like human beings should take precedent over everything else. And I understand that we need money to make things happen, but human lives should be placed above everything else is the way I'll keep that nice and in the center.
I agree. This is beyond politics, I think.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
there's no politician that could have prepared for this. But the one thing that I'm really liking, at least with this administration, is that they are saying that in a time of crisis, they will not have to rely on other countries in order to facilitate the American people, which is good. No matter who's in president, it should be one of those fail safes where a company will start, let's just say they produce alcohol, right? Next thing you know, like they could just turn over the tables and just start producing masks or whatever.
All the breweries are making sanitizer right now, which is awesome.
See, that's like the best case scenario. And this is like, at least we learn now. I mean, this is pretty bad, but it could have been worse, right?
Yeah, could have been better. Could have been better.
Yeah.
Could have been better. But yeah. So hopefully just everyone just takes the precautions, and whether they think it's extreme or not extreme, just let's do this for the betterment of all of us, and let's get this crap behind us so we can go out, being in restaurants, being at shows, and let's get life back to normal.
Are you one of those guys who's like a doomsday prepper? Did you buy like 50,000 rolls of toilet paper and stuff?
No. I'm one of the people that I really look down upon and criticize the people that are just hoarding for singular themselves, their own family. If we all took just what we need and everyone could have just what they need, then we can all get through this together in a much easier way versus one person taking everything for the 4 of the people that are under his roof and then everyone else in that town not having it. But if we all took just what we needed just to get through a week or a couple of days and everyone kept doing that and kept the distance, I'm just all about everybody doing well at the same time. It's not about one, it's about all.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I've been keeping an eye on your Instagram and your Facebook. Matt, as we all know, Matt Heafy likes to eat, right?
Yes,
So has this been a good time for you to cook?
Since having the kids and since streaming so much, there is no time to cook. With streaming, this like a lot of band guys are jumping in now, and I encourage it, and I'm here to help everybody. I was helping Devin with some of the setup stuff, and I'm actually working with Twitch. Like I've told you, I'm working with Twitch to do all the help guides for all their music stuff. So I think all the musicians on here, the better. The thing they need to realize that it does require schedule. It does require, just like it is the work that you and I do, like going out and touring. It's a lot of work and it's difficult to build your band up. There's the same thing with the stream. This thing has been very difficult to build up, but thankfully with just that like military style regiment that I inherited from my dad and my Japanese mother, like I'm all about that schedule thing. So when bands want to start doing this, any question they've got, I'm not like preachy to them, but if they ever have questions, it's just schedule, consistency, authenticity, and working on building your community first and foremost.
Well, it's actually amazing because, okay, I've obviously, been there out on the road and, you get so tired when you go on tour. You may be touring like 6 months out of the year, maybe even 9 months at times. And you feel like you never have a moment to yourself. I'm actually really surprised. I'm psyched for you too, because your channel's obviously doing very well. But it's amazing to me that you find the energy, even when you're home, to keep this thing going and on the road. Because I thought it was cool. You do some live feeds from your sound check and you do like backstage stuff. And like, what is the thing that really drove you to jump on this and really get, your feed your viewership up and all that stuff? Like, what is obviously there's financial benefits for everything that you do like this, but really, like, is it you just like connecting with your audience?
It's community. I mean, I've been doing the promo tour at home for our record, and everyone knows the history with us in the UK. So the UK Ascendancy was the only time in Trivium's history that we were a press band. It was the only time ever. It was the only time that we were on every single magazine cover. We had gold record. We had perfect marks for every show. We could do no wrong. We were hailed as the next biggest band in the world, hailed as the best band in the world. The very next record, those same magazines said all that same thing, said that we were the worst band in the world, that we were over, and they did everything in their power to bury us as a band. So we then lost the press friends. During the Ascendancy thing of the glory days of the press era of Trivium, at the same time, every band was looking at that and going, who the hell are these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids saying they're going to take over the world, where these magazines are saying they're the best too? Fuck these dudes. And we became very quickly ostracized. And it was intense. It was tough. I mean, when we first started touring, it just felt very lonely. And so when we weren't a press band and we weren't a band's band, the thing that we did have always were our fans and supporters. We had ourselves and we had our fans, and that was it. And I think that's why the relationship between us and our fans has been so strong, because all we've ever had is them. All we've ever had is them and ourselves. So we've cultivated that relationship and just kept that going. That's why I love this. So I started streaming on Twitch 3 years ago, just casually playing video games here and there. Had a PS4 webcam, had 5 to 15 people, and actually all of them, the first 15 people are all still here to this day, that would watch. I would kind of engage, stream for 15, 20 minutes and think that was it. 2.5 years ago, I was invited to Twitch HQ from Brandon and John, these two people that were Trivium fans. They noticed that I was streaming. They're like, hey, come down to the HQ and we'll give you a tour. Met them, became friends with them. They lent me this thing called the Gun Run IRL backpack. It's an HD camera powered by 4 hotspots that feeds into a live streaming device that goes to your Twitch channel. Yeah. So we started streaming every show from that day, and that was the Trivium Arch Enemy Fit for an Autopsy While She Sleeps tour. Started streaming every single show, and sort of left it at that. I would get home and go back to the 20, 30, 45 minutes a day streaming. We'd visit them in San Francisco, and I said to John and Brandon, man, I love streaming so much. I wish I could do it more, but since I blew my voice out in 2014, I have to practice at least 1 to 3 hours a day of singing and screaming to keep the chops up. Brandon looks at me and goes, why don't you stream that? And I said, Brandon, no one wants to watch me do my vocal exercises. That's ridiculous. He's like, try it. As of 2.5 years ago, this became my first band and job ever was Trivium. I joined Trivium in 99 when it became like cash positive, in like 2006-ish was the first time it ever became a job. And as of 2.5 years ago, this was the first time I ever had a second job. So Twitch became my full-time second gig. 5 days a week, 2 streams a day, 3 to 6 hours a day, off tour, 7 days a week, 1 to 3 streams a day on tour. And I love it. I know that it seems intense. I've had band guys ask me like, dude, how are you connected that much? Don't you feel like you don't have space? But we were able to make 2 records while I was a full-time streamer. I guess it wasn't full-time with Sin, but let's say just this new record with the Dead Men Say. We made this record. I was still streaming every morning. No one knew, except for our mods kind of knew something was up, like the 10 or 15 of them. They knew something was up, but no one else knew. So there are ways to show what you want to show and not show what you want to show. Like my kids' faces, I keep it off socials. No one's ever seen our kids' faces, and people respect that. I show them with the sticker over their face, and we're able to still have that fantastic relationship where the fans, we have that openness and that connectivity, but there are certain things that we do leave silent, like the record buildup, and where we still wanted to make it exciting for them.
I really appreciate that with you, because there are a lot of people that post their kids, and there's nothing wrong with that, but your kids, it's your kids' decision whether or not they want to be on social media, not yours. You know,
that's 100% what I said.
Yeah, and going back to what you were talking about with the band stuff, it's like every band goes through that issue where one day you're the chosen ones, you can do no wrong, and then the next album, like, everybody hates on you. And again, that's, you guys came out at a very a strange time, because there was my class of bands that was just right at the cusp of when everything was turning over, like Killswitch, Us, Lamb of God, like Every Time I Die, and like all these bands, and you guys were the next phase, and you guys were always really good. I mean, you and I never really talked during that period of time, but I always liked Trivium. And but that's the funny thing, is that through jealousy, because I know you guys were massive, you hear a lot of band guys already kind of talking about, oh yeah, they're just this, or oh, this guy does this for them, and oh yeah, it's all the label. And so with that kind of like underground, as I want to call it, shit talk, you guys like still just kept, you were on an upward trajectory. But then when like the press comes after you, that's when everyone gets excited to see you guys fail. Oh, yeah. But the best part about, I mean, yourself, your stream, Trivium, the whole nine, your fan base, it's so cool that you guys have just overcome all that, and you're just now a staple. You're one of those bands that, you know, in theory, you would open up like a metal magazine, and your logo would always be on, you know, in with the all the biggest ones. You guys play all the biggest festivals. Maybe you might have had a down album cycle, but it's great that you guys have overcome that. Is that kind of like, I mean, does management have anything to do with that, or are you guys just like mainly sticking to what you do and your fans are just responding?
It's just always sticking to what we do. I've been able to be really reflective on everything we've ever done. 6 of our records, Ember to Inferno, Ascendancy, In Wave, Shogun, Sin of the Sentence, and Dead Men, those records, we made them thinking not of, are people going to like this or people going to dislike this? Let's just make exactly what we want to make and not think anything else of that. There are no boundaries. Let's let whatever happens, happens. For the Crusade, it was a conscious decision. It was my conscious decision to rebel against everything we'd ever done, because I looked around. I wasn't thinking of all the good that was happening during the UK Ascendancy thing. I was looking at, all right, now there's all these slew of people that are saying we're an emo band. I'm like, that makes no sense to me. This record could never be played by an emo band ever. Like, yes, I like some of those bands, but this is metal, this is tech, it's metalcore, it's got all this stuff going on. So I think part of it was me wanting to show people, hey, this is what else we can do. Because I feel like if I looked like I did on Shogun, on Ascendancy, the super long lion's mane, those metal kids would have loved Ascendancy. However, I feel like the casual people that didn't know what metal was yet, that got into us on Ascendancy, they wouldn't have. Because I feel like it's unfortunate that things have to be superficial like that. So Crusade was a response a little bit to that, a little bit to the other bands that weren't into us, a little bit to the people that we couldn't quite snatch. And I was like, all right, I want to show them for what else we can do. And I looked at ourselves, I looked at the other bands of the climate. I was like, all right, everyone's singing and screaming, everyone's playing breakdowns and solos and double bass. Let's get rid of all those things and make a traditional 80s thrash record, that was super risky. That could have tanked us. The UK went quickly down, but that's when Europe really started picking up for us. Iron Maiden all of a sudden was like, you guys are good, we're going to bring you on tour, and other things started opening up. So I wouldn't go back and change that, but it was a really weird thing for us to go up and then down, and then Shogun started picking back up again. We've gone up and down so many times, just like all bands have, and that's what puts us to where we are here. So Crusade, Vengeance, and Silence were 3 times in our history where we decided to stay in a lane. Crusade, it was the lane of staying away from anything we'd ever done before. Vengeance and Silence were their own separate lanes. Let's not do this, this, or this, but let's stay right here. And while I'm proud of those 3 records, that's something that Trivium is not meant to do. We're not meant to set boundaries. We should just allow anything that happens as it does when we feel good. And that's why this new record sounds like the best aspects of everything we've ever done.
Well, it's funny because writing records myself, I could say that there's a small piece of you that wants to appease your fan base. But at the end of the day, your fan base is they're the ones that liked you for what you were in the first place.
100%.
So at that point, whatever it is that you're into, you should be able to just create. I mean, it's your blank canvas and you should be able to write whatever you want. And it's cool that you were like label and pressure from management can actually push a band into writing some of the same nonsense, where it's actually cool that you guys made a band decision to move forward and write what you wanted to, because I'm sure you got flack from I'm sure you had a great relationship with Roadrunner. They're all really cool over there, but I guarantee they needed that one single, or they needed this, or they wanted to push you into a specific direction. How is all your I bet your fan base on Twitch doesn't know how much pressure there is with label and management. So what was it like dealing with that?
I remember with Ascendancy, which was really funny because that record did so well. We had 2 A&R guys at the time, and one of them hated the song "Die in Your Arms." He's like, this song should not be on the album. It was the softer song off the record. He's like, this has no place in the record. I'm telling you, this is a mistake to put this on. And we dug our heels and we're like, no, we're going to do this. We put it on. That song actually went to BBC Radio 1, which is pretty much absolutely unheard of for modern bands to do. Was that crossed over into the pop charts? Not pop, but like general population kind of listening. So luckily, I mean, we have had pressure for certain things. Like the Crusade was pressure of, you guys have 6 weeks to write. You're writing while you're living in, because that's when we're touring a van. And they're like, you're writing in the van, you're writing in dressing rooms. You have to do whatever you got to do because you're getting a studio at this point and you're making the record. And that showed us quickly that we do not work well off writing time, that we do not like to have a confinement of, this is when you're supposed to write, this is when you record. So we just write. Yeah, it makes contrived stuff and never comes out the way it's supposed to. We've had all sorts of weird things. I mean, weird things like weird crew people. I mean, one of the oldest jokes about me is from a crew guy, and it sucks. And that joke, everybody knows that joke, because I've turned into a meme. The Nobody Eats Till Matt Heafy Eats. Yep. We had a terrible tour manager who went up to one of my favorite singers of all time and said, as he was grabbing a bite of food, whoa, nobody eats till Matt Heafy eats. Yep. And that, coupled with the UK hype, coupled with everything else going on, these guys really are assholes. And then it snowballed from there. And we found out about that a year later, unfortunately, and got rid of that tour manager. Actually, that guy was spiraling out on his own. But there's so many outside forces that try to rip you down. Thankfully, at least with our manager, Justin, he's been managing me since I was like 15, 16. So I look at him as an older brother. He's always taken care of us. But we've had bad crews. Like, we find out later on a tour that we had a tour manager that was crappy to the opening bands. We make sure we always get rid of them immediately, because that was our upbringing from 2004 to 2008, 9. That was still that old school 90s, 80s mentality of, let's treat the openers like crap. Let's bully them. No stage space. I mean, unless the stages were too small to even provide stage space, and that's a different matter altogether, which
they always find a way.
Yeah, there's some things. So we've had things like that. There always are small sources trying to sabotage. But with all that being said, it taught us, like, when we started realizing, wow, your crew can represent you. Your crew can make other bands feel bad about themselves. They're doing the same thing to us from other people. So we really keep everything. We don't allow anything to be outside of our hands. We haven't, like, when it comes down to merch, staging, sound, record, video directors, photographers, literally everything that is the band visually and musically, we make sure we are not micromanaging that aspect, but putting our stamp of quality before it ever goes out there. And I think that that's what's really important, because I see a lot of great bands out there, like the band's much bigger than us. Terrible merch lines. Like, it's like they didn't even look at it. They're just like, whatever's fine. I don't care. Or I've met band guys that are like, I don't care about art, so just whatever is fine. That's unacceptable. And same thing with like crew, label, people that are involved with us. But what's great where we are now, where we are with our label, our crew, everyone that works with us, we never say anybody works for us. We always say everybody works with us. It's a communal effort. All 4 of us in the band are just as important as anyone else. There is no sole leader of our band. We all lead this thing together. And I think that with that mindset and keeping ourselves surrounded with only people that have that is why it's worked as of, the years that we've been doing that.
Yeah. I personally, I gotta say, like, I mean, you and I've had this discussion off camera, but
Yes.
I personally love the no one eats till Matt Heafy eats thing because
It's pretty good.
I think I was the one who actually told you, and we really didn't even know each other then. But my thing is this: is that when you're on stage and you're one of those guys who just exerts some type of thing, I'm totally responsible for like my own how people view me just because I'm kind of a wild person and I let my offstage antics kind of reflect my personality, right? But with you, like I've heard so many ridiculous thing about artists, like for instance, Dino Cazares, right? One of my good friends. I heard that like a band was complaining once because he took a full dressing room for just his guitars. Now, for me, that sounds ridiculous, and you laugh and I laugh. But I just think if that's true, it's hilarious. But if it's not true, that sucks for him. But I still
Yep.
think it's funny.
Yep.
And so I actually like went right up to Dino and I was like, "Yo, Dino, like, did this happen?" He's like, "Hell no, that didn't happen."
Dude, I heard
So
stuff. Yeah. It's
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
so with you, I was like, "Oh, no one eats till Matt Heafy eats. Oh, you're big time," and you were like, "What's going on? What do you mean?" And I told you the story, and you started laughing. You're like, "We didn't do that." Like, but it was cool because now it's become a saying for you. Like I think you made like merch,
It's a
right? Like,
shirt. Yeah, it's a shirt. It's yep. It looks
it's
like
the
the dark.
best.
It looks like the Dark Throne cover. It's me and black metal corpse paint on the back. It says "No one eats till Matt Heafy eats." But it's kind of ironic too because the people that know me are friends. Like anyone that sees me talk about food, it's the opposite because the way I am with food is I always want everyone to be eating the same thing.
Yeah.
I never want to go to places where each get their own thing. I always want everyone to have the same shared experience that everyone's eating the same thing. It's a communal thing. So I understand that when people didn't know me, didn't know who we were, they could have possibly believed it. I mean, I've seen things from back in the day. Some people are like, "Oh yeah, Matt's dad bought his record deal, and he bought their first week sales." It's like, so he bought every CD, or
Yeah.
like people really try to fabricate things. But I mean, we live in the peak disinformation age nowadays too. So you see how it can be pretty prevalent.
Well,
But
not
exactly.
knowing you, I felt like that made you more attractive to me because I thought it was funny. I was like, this kid's good. I like this guy.
This kid's gonna make it to the top. But what's good now is if anyone's ever wondering anything about it, like, yo, is that guy a dickhead or is he this or that? I am live like 3 to 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. If I were bad, it would slip and it would be obvious somewhere. There would be clips
Yeah.
of it somewhere. There would be proof. It'd be very easy to find.
Well, I have a knack for calling people out, and I definitely challenged you on that at one point. But since then, like every single experience I've had hanging out with you, just to vouch for you in front of your face, I'd say that you're a stand-up guy.
Thanks. Well, I mean, there was a moment. I mean, I was super disciplined, regimented when I joined the band. My parents never had to set a curfew, never had to worry about me because I was just playing guitar or video games the whole time.
So nothing's changed.
now it's the exact same again. But from 18 or 17, 18, 19, that kind of era, like all of a sudden we're handed the keys to the city. We get to go in a van, no one's going to tell us how late to stay up. We get to play metal in front of, 5 people. That's cool. Whatever. We get free drinks at the bar for our payment. And then now all of a sudden we're on magazine covers. All right. There was a little bit where we were party dicks and that kind of stuff, but you're supposed to go through that. You're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to go through bad things and good things. So yeah, I'm sure there were probably a year, 2 or 3 that maybe we were questionable people, but we snapped out of it pretty quick. It was that download show we played in 2005 when we were bumped up to the main stage. It was 10:59. There was nobody out there on the field yet. We were all still hungover. My guitar wasn't in tune. My voice wasn't working. Walked up on stage, and then 40,000 people come rushing onto the field. I blacked out. The show thankfully went perfect. I didn't black out because of booze or anything. I just blacked out because of adrenaline intensity. Intensity, and then it come off, and I realized I can't live like this anymore. We got to take this seriously. And it was really from that moment on that it became, I live with that same regiment still.
Well, I was thinking about that too as you were saying it. This morning I was woken up to a text from my singer, and we went on tour with Diamond Vinny before they passed away on their first tour back as Damage Plan, and I remember they introduced us to alcohol. But not only did they introduce us to alcohol, it was like power drinking, So there's you get caught up in like drinking like 2 handles of whiskey in a day between 5 guys, and then like the next thing you know, you're playing drunk every night, and then that becomes a crutch for you.
Yep.
It really does. Like, I don't think people understand how easy it is to get caught up in those vices and have them also take over your life. So it's cool to see you sober. It's cool to see you taking what you do seriously, because as we're older, I think we've all scaled back a lot, but some guys still have fun here and there, but
Yeah.
it's good
Well,
to see that you guys are all healthy.
I do drink, but moderation. Like I'm an extremist, but then I like incorporate moderation.
Same here. Like, if I drink, I'll drink heavy with my friends because we're having a good time. But
Yep.
most of the time, I won't touch alcohol just because, especially if we play, I'll have a shot or two. But I mean, you don't have to get
Yeah,
wasted.
and the show's always the show's always takes precedent, and you know what you've been able to build with the Fishman brand is insane. It's amazing, and like what both of us do, we can have fun, but you can have professionality at the same time. And I feel like it's knowing when is the time to let loose versus just letting loose at all times.
Well, the Fishman thing was interesting for me is because, I went to school. Not many people know this, but
Oh,
so I
wait,
didn't.
your mic muted. So I think you went to school for it's good now.
I went to school for marketing and finance, right, at University of Massachusetts in Boston. I was planning on being a tax examiner, so that was my life, or an accountant, one or the other. But so like, when it comes down to like, I had all these years in the music business, and I got to about like 20 years of being in my band, or 15, 17 years, whatever it is. Next thing you know, I end up finding a really great pickup, and instead of being like, well, this is a really great pickup, let me just start playing it and then just not talk about it to everybody. I ended up asking Larry Fishman for a job, and I told him too, because I had my Unearth income. I was like, you don't have to pay me, like I don't need a paycheck from you. And he insisted, and sure enough, as things started growing, and all those years of preparation prior to being in a band, like all the marketing and advertising and stuff that I've done with the band, and then fused with all the stuff that I was doing for being almost a CPA, like an accountant, actually helped. So a lot of people don't understand how going to school for a real degree, or just or being really smart about your money. Like, you're a very regimented person, as you say. I'm sure you keep your eyes on everything, right? So band, business, the whole thing, it's all intertwined.
Yep. It's very important to keep track of everything and keep everything in line. I haven't figured out an eloquent way to put this quote, but the way someone does one thing is the way they do all things. Like if you look at how someone tours, or the way someone packs their stuff, or the way someone unpacks their stuff on a day off, or the way someone organizes their desktop or their room or their guitar area, or I feel like they sort of do the same methodology on everything. The same way I learned to play guitar and to sing is the same way I learned to do jiu-jitsu. It's like you jump into something difficult, and you sort of, the same learning processes or the same organizational processes you do are the ones you add on everything else.
Yeah, I kind of take the same thing into account. Like, especially being a musician, I found myself with a lot of free time, so I would try to master something, or try something new once every year. So for instance, you start off small. Like for me, I used to do photography, but I couldn't afford it all the way growing up, playing in a band, because you're just a poor musician. But once I had enough money to buy a camera, I was shooting with that constantly. Or, whether it be cooking or live streaming or whatever, it's always gratifying to know that you created something out of nothing, and then you're doing it. And it's actually something that you could do and enjoy every day.
Definitely. We're talking about the area when you guys were coming up. I had that old, when Hellfest was an American festival, I had that old VHS, and I'd watch your guys' set all the time on that.
We were so
dude,
mad.
It was great, man. It was great.
No, man, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So it's because like I was relearning a bunch of stuff from our first record today, Ember to Inferno, that came out in like 2003, 2004. That was super heavily influenced by all like sort of later 90s to early 2000s metalcore and hardcore.
Yeah.
And that was something that, like, those bands of that era made some of the best metalcore and hardcore. And I'll meet a lot of people now. So this is kind of going off multiple tangents. I feel like metal kids always dig in the past. They do know where the roots come from. Hardcore as well, punk as well. But I feel like new school metalcore kids don't understand always where riffs come from. So I'll mention like, oh man, how about Opposite December from Poison the Well, or early Caliban or early Heaven Shall Burn. People be like, I'm not really familiar with that, where they're super into that genre. So I've been really pushing people to dig into stuff. And it's
like bands like Disembodied, Poison the Well. There was Harvest. Like, there was cool bands happening earlier than 2000. Caven was another one that like was a local heroes here. But we were like one of those bands that like we actually, our sound came from, like, we would play with Hatebreed, and then like or All Out War, like one of these like super thuggy bands on a Friday night, and then the next night we'd play with Shadows Fall, and like a band that was like lighter and more metal. And for us, metalcore, or the Unearth sound, came from like just being able to play on the same show as those two guys on the same weekend.
that's awesome.
So it's kind of weird. And there was a lot of bands now that obviously are much bigger than us that sound like us. But it's okay. It's totally cool because they took inspiration off of what we did and took it to the
Yeah,
next
it's
level.
like you guys were one of the few bands that had like really proficient shredding with breakdowns and screaming, and like I thought that was such a cool thing to have, like the arpeggiation and like all that stuff within the heavy stuff.
Well, that's why I got super excited when, when I first met Tosin Abasi. He and I, were never really friends, and then we started working together with Fishman. He like we were driving around somewhere, and I was talking about him and Misha and how cool their little scene is because my scene was similar to theirs, where it was like me and Adam D, and like we were all friends prior to being in big bands. And he just kind of leaned over and was like, I don't think there was another band to do breakdowns and then like put sweep arpeggios over it before you guys. He's like, I used to lose my mind over that, and like I couldn't believe that, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, I don't.
I mean,
I don't think so either.
I can't think from like anyone around the consciousness era that would have been doing that as well.
Yeah, we're talking 2000. You know what I mean? And whatever. But it's cool that other musicians pick up on stuff that you don't even understand about yourself. So
definitely, yeah, because like it was a weird time when I think it was around the Silence in the Snow era for us, where I started meeting a lot of these British bands that I was a huge fan of, like these up and coming, really sick modern metal and metalcore bands. Or I'll talk to other artists and be like, oh yeah, Sentency was the first heavy record I got into. I was like, what? I was like, because people don't really seem to talk about that. And that's why, like, we always talk about who our heroes are. And we make sure we always talk about, too, the new bands we're listening to. I think that's so important that we can keep the word going so that way, like, future generations have a place to be able to play live shows and stuff. So I'm always blown away when I find, like, some random band that I'm super into, like a band that you'd never expect to be in a Trivium. Like, oh, yeah, I love Ascendancy. Damn, I've never heard you mention that in anything ever, but thank you so much.
Oh man, the thing that's such a trip for me is that now, you and I mean, you're younger we're a little bit older, so now you walk around backstage almost like an old man. You're like, "Hey, kids, you guys are great."
Yep.
Hey, look, it's old man Ken Susi and Matt Heafy. They're walking around.
I need my walker soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop running in the hallway, kids. I'm trying to concentrate.
Well, I mean, man, our neighbor, like sometimes our neighbors will be partying too late, and they're older than my wife and I, and we're like, "Damn, it's 8:30. It's too late for this."
I'm actually the opposite. Like, so I live in a really small town just outside of Boston, like about an hour away. And my mother, my brother, my sister, we all live on the same cul-de-sac. So we have a grocery market called Stop and Shop. And she gets, I call it recognized all the time at the grocery market. My mother will pull out her credit card and some kid will be like, do you know Ken Susi? And they'll be like, oh, that's my son, And they're like, does he live in this town? And she'll be like, yeah, because she'll talk about me all day. So I go into Stop and Shop one night, like super late. That's when I do my shopping. And this kid looks at me and a couple other kids look at me, and then they come over, hey man, we're having a party tonight. Like, do you want to come and hang? And I'm like, how old are you guys? They're like 18. I'm like, all right, cool. I just roll up to like strangers' houses and just party with them in my own.
Awesome.
In my
you should be
hometown.
filming this stuff and turning this into YouTube videos, because that would be very big. Well, then again, if they're drinking and they're under 21, yeah, you might get busted pretty quickly on your YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the cool thing is I know plenty of. I know plenty of the police in my town, so they're cool with me. But I won't buy them alcohol for sure. I'm not gonna get trapped. So talking about this virus thing and touring. So obviously, you and I are connected to a lot of musicians. I know that a lot of musicians have suffered because of this whole virus. Are there any notable GoFundMe's or any other bands? Because obviously, you got Devin Townsend, right, who just had to stop his tour. You have Chuck Billy and Testament, and some of the guys in that camp that had to stop their tour in Europe, and now they all have the virus.
Yep.
So, are there any GoFundMe's that you want to promote, or anything that point your fan base to anywhere to donate money?
What I've been doing is just posting about bands that I know that they really need merchandising, that they need their merch bought right now. So I've been posting about that. The bands I've been shouting out: Venom Prison, Fit for an Autopsy, and I'm encouraging everyone to just constantly retweet and post awareness. We did have a massive Asia tour also booked. We had all the flights bought, all the hotels bought. We had all this stuff paid for. It's an incredible financial hit. So unfortunately, like, everyone is walking out of this thing scathed, it seems, and it's really terrible. So I just keep encouraging everyone: buy your favorite band's merch. Stream the hell out of their songs. Just keep their stuff on repeat when you go to sleep.
Yeah,
maximize.
Isn't it Spotify who's giving 100% of the proceeds to the bands, right?
Currently? I haven't seen that yet. I need to look into that. Hopefully they are. So we got a record coming out soon. We bought a lot of plane tickets that are going nowhere. So we'll see. We'll see.
Oh man, that's unfortunate, but I'm sure you guys will get through it. You're a great band, and there'll be a festival.
We'll try, man. Yeah, thankfully. I mean, I'm so thankful that I've had the infrastructure for the streaming thing going already. It's like every interview has been like, "Oh, Matt, what are you doing now that you can't play shows?" It's like, well, coincidentally, I've been already doing this for 2.5, 3 years. So I'm very thankful that I've got this community supporting me, because I mean, our 2 kids are tiny, but man, they eat a lot. They use a lot of diapers. They incur a lot of bills for 2 25-pound human beings. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Well, not to switch gears too. I don't want to like sit and talk about gear, but obviously you're into a lot of amps.
Oh yeah, we'll talk gear. Yeah, I love talking gear.
Well, as you can see behind me, I have like VHT gears, Soldano, Mesa, Marshall. I'm like you. I have one of each 5150. I have the Signature. I have the Block Letter. I have the 6505. I have the 2. So you're just getting into all those amps again, right?
Yeah. So Corey and I we've been using modeling amps. We were one of the first bands to use Axe FX Live, then one of the first bands to switch to Kemper. But our records, we always use 2 beds. I say that's the way to go. And there's nothing wrong with using profilers or suites or VSTs or anything for streaming on stage, studio. There's nothing wrong with it. Whatever you like. But 8 out of 9 Trivium records were made with some form of 5150 or a PV. Our first album was done with the Triple X. Our newest album was actually done with the Triple X2, which is very surprising. You don't hear about those too much. And everything else besides Crusade was either 5150, 1, 2, 05, 05 plus, or 34 plus. Sin was a 5153. I'm not going to bother collecting the EVH stuff just because I've already collecting other stuff, so I'm going to leave it there. At home, I've got the 5150, which is the best sound. This specific one was in perfect condition, the block, and it's the best sounding head I've ever used. I just got a 2 that is in perfect condition as well, a 34 plus, perfect condition, 05. So I just need the 05 plus. I need the Signature if I want to finish the collection. I don't know. I mean, I've got the block, so I might leave it as is.
Get the Signature, because my Signature I bought from the band Zayo, which they recorded all their records on. And that one sounds the best out of all the EVHs. The 5150s I have.
That's amazing.
But it's the luck of the draw. It's like
you never know. Mine, luckily, I got from an amp shop, so they took like perfect care of it. I was really lucky. I've also been collecting tons of overdrives. I have all the 40th anniversary Maxon stuff now, the Horizon stuff, the MXR stuff. But man, the winner so far has been this guy right here, the Eris TS Pre. Corey recommended it to me. It's like a clean boost, like a preamp. There's no gain knob on it at all. It's got low, high, and output. I use an MXR 6-band in front of that, in the TS Pre, noise suppressor, 5150, and then there's this thing behind me called the Box of Doom. I don't know if you've seen that thing yet.
No.
It's this company out of the Netherlands. They make a road case. It's an ISO box with 1 speaker in it. I have a Redback 150 watt, so it's a single 150 watt speaker in that, 2 SM57s. That's what I feed into my stream. Yep. This rig is like my favorite rig I've ever played on ever.
That's awesome. I actually use for cabs. I use the 2 notes. I don't have it with me, but the 2 notes.
Yeah, those things are really sick.
The cab M. It's a pedal. I basically impulse in my studio the exact microphone combination, and I take it all over the world with me. It's kind of a cool thing. So
that's
if
awesome.
You want to use real amps and also fake stuff,
definitely. Yeah, I think we're going to do anywhere where we're touring on our bus with the truck. We'll do the Box of Dooms with heads. Corey and I are actually working with. It's slowed down right now because of this whole thing. We're working with one of the amp companies to make. Like when kids are trying to figure out what amp to buy, they're always like, man, I don't know what to buy because there's so many options. So we basically want to make like the one-stop shop amp. 1 second. What's up? What? Okay, I thought there was something wrong. You got it. My wife and I, we bought this bed. I don't want to yell at the company, but we bought a bed from this cool company that we bought a couch from before, but they didn't ship these integral screws to put the legs on. So we just kept contacting, like, you didn't send us the parts for the legs. And like the guys that came in didn't know how to build it. They didn't know, there were no instructions. They'd never built anything for this company before. So then the company apologized. I had to DM them. I'm like, listen, I'm not going public with this, but please get me the right parts. So then they sent us the wrong parts twice, and then they finally got us the right parts, and we've been having to do it ourselves, and it was ridiculous.
So the nobody eats till Matt Heafy eats guy came out.
Yes, he came out. I was like, listen, I'm not going public, but I need these screws. Good job.
Yeah.
I thought something was wrong. Anytime Ashley pops her head in and she's like, gives a look, I'm like, are the kids okay? Because, man, our son, everyone was like, if you can make it to a year and you have in the emergency room, you win.
Yeah.
It was like a year and a day. He splits his head open, and we see white. We're like, that's his skull. Holy shit. And like, try to kick into like some kind of like training mode, but we haven't really prepared for this. Turns out below the skin, there's fascia and then muscle, or is it muscle, fascia, muscle, then the bone. So it was actually the fascia. We thought it was his skull. So yeah, 1 year, like 1 day, basically emergency room. So you never know.
You're lucky I wasn't your kid, because I would have been breaking my head.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Our son, he's like, I'm not a risk taker. We can leave our daughter somewhere, like kind of chill. You don't have to worry about it. If you leave him, he's either climbed a bookshelf, he's on top of the couch trying to climb up into a window. I don't know, man.
Well, women at an earlier age and even later age, as far as I'm concerned, are much smarter.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with that. And I can see it in here. I mean, my wife is smarter than me, and our daughter is smarter than her son, for sure.
So yeah.
But sorry, we're talking about gear, and then I got sidetracked by the face. But
so I guess we'll move over to the Fishman stuff then, because like obviously you don't have to name names, but you were using other pickups before, and you and I met, and it was just the right timing, and I sent you some Fishman Fluence stuff out, and I think your response was very similar to mine when I first found Fluence. It was like a very organic thing that you couldn't believe that like it was as good as it was, because you hear all this hype about gear, and changing your pickups is one of those things that you never really think about. Like, what was your journey as far as like, going from your past company into finding Fishman, and what's going on now with it?
What blew my mind, and I'm not just saying it because we're here, I'm not just saying because we're friends, I'm not just saying because I use the pickups. I found that I was all of a sudden playing guitar better. I was playing guitar better live. I was playing guitar better in the studio, because it's almost like I started feeling there was a latency with other pickups and all pickups, because I have I've been into collecting guitars from like boutique brands lately. I guess my signatures, how much they go for, $800 to $1,000. My $800 signature guitar with Fishman's sounds better than every single other one of my guitars that I own, which is insane. My Epiphone sounds better than my Gibsons. I'm sure if I put the Fishmans in them, they would sound on par. But this white one right here that I'll use for like when we start playing, it sounds better than any guitar I own, and it's ridiculous. So I knew right then. I knew from the first show, I was like, let's just try it. Like, the best way to try it is the show. I'm not going to try it out in sound check or something.
Yep.
I noticed that part on the sin of the sentence specifically. I always had a hard time staying. I was like, why the hell is my timing off? Do I need more? I don't have click live, but Alex does. Like, do I need click? Is Alex's hi-hat not loud enough? I switched the pickups. I was perfectly locked in time. I was like, there's something about the tonal cut. When you explained to me, because I think a lot of people I saw people asking about, is it active? When you were saying, no, it's a passive pickup with active technology, that made me, and that's correct, right? I just want to...
Yeah, it's like, in order to, it's an analog pickup, meaning it's built the same way as any other pickup, but we took away that 80-year-old the copper winding around the pickup, and we brought it to 2020, right?
Yep.
So you have like, it requires power in order to function, but it still acts as how you would want it to be completely passive or totally active, one or the other.
Yep.
So
and it's nuts. I mean, our new record, something, looks like our socials have been teasing up something. Something is happening tomorrow. And with Catastrophist, this is our first Trivium record that you can hear, because I wasn't using Fishman yet on Sin, but on What the Dead Men Say with their song Catastrophist, with the thing that might be happening tomorrow. That's my Epiphone. It's these guitars. It's the exact same model, but the ones that are warehouse. Fishman's, Evertune's, Epiphones is our main rhythm guitar tone into a Ibanez TS9. Surprisingly, that was the winner of the pedals. TS9 into an ISP into a Triple X2 Mesa with vintage 30s SM57, a single SM57 left and right, and that's the Fishman sound right there. And pickups. So we've been doing a lot of gear shootouts lately on the channel and it's different than a lot of the gear testing for YouTube. Because here it's live. Here you see me fumble. You see me like having to figure this thing out. Even though we've made 9 records, I've never mic'd a cab in my life until this. So I had to learn how to mic because I want to use analog gear for streaming. It'd be so much easier to use a VST or to use a profiler, but the real tone has been really awesome. So having to learn how to do the mic placement just right. I do a fake stereo for my stream. 257s on the same thing so I can go left and right and hear my voice right. But the pickups are insane. They're so clear, and they're so functional, and monitoring yourself feels more accurate than ever. Like, it makes me really feel like other things have latency, even though that's not really what I'm hearing, but that's what it feels like. It feels like there's zero latency versus, I don't know, several milliseconds on another pickup.
Yeah, there's an experiment online about, people take like a tube, and they'll take a magnet and they'll throw the magnet down the copper tube, and it'll slowly make its way down this copper tube, right? Whereas if you have a magnet and you have a glass tube and you just drop the magnet down that glass tube, it'll completely fall. And it's the same way your pickups are, because there's no copper winding inside of our pickup. So when you're playing and there's a magnet involved and it sticks right through the copper winding, you're going to get it's called like a slew rate, right? There's going to be some latency, or it's going to, like, drag it a bit. And that's a good thing to have, like, in a pickup sometimes, but it's the amount of it, right? So Fishman is like completely transparent. The sound just goes right into the pickup and right outside your guitar and hits the amp the right way. So yeah, no, and like I found in my experience when I first picked up Fluence, obviously the first thing was I hit the guitar and I was like, whoa, that just flew out of the amp. That was amazing. But how many times, and I'm telling you, I've dealt with this so much. You get into a studio with a producer and they say to you, like, oh, okay, how many guitars you got? And you're like, all right, well, I have 4 of my favorite guitars. I don't know. So all the same pickups, kind of the same woods, you're in the same ballpark, but they sound drastically different.
Yep.
And I'm like, and I was saying to myself, like, at the time I was playing Ibanez, and I'm like going through like 4 or 5 guitars and they're all the same wood with the same pickups, but they sound like completely different. So I'm like, oh, cool. I have like 15 trash guitars, but this one we picked for the record and it's good. So once I got Fishman in all of our pickups, in all my guitars, all those guitars came to life. Whereas, like, I didn't know that there was a variation between the windings in each pickup on the production line from those other manufacturers, right? So you must have dealt with that at like throughout the years, right?
I mean, the record that killed us for gear, and we never did it again, was In Waves with Colin Richardson. Colin Richardson, one of the greatest producers for metal. Guitar tones for that record, I think we spent 2 weeks. And by that 2 weeks, I was like, this sucks. I can't do this anymore. Colin, I'm sorry. No offense, dude. But we tried every single guitar.
Yep.
It was all my Gibsons. They all, like you said, they all sound different. We tried every head, every cab, every microphone, all these things. And drums was like 10 days for tones. It really hurt me. And it was just far too much. But luckily with Sin was a time where, like, Josh introduced me to the Evertunes. And I know you've got that in your signature as well.
Yep.
He's like, all right, a lot of guitar players are very resistant with this, but I've got this piece of technology, or this piece of hardware that's going to cut your guitar recording into a fifth. Are you cool with that? Sure, let's do it. I switched all my guitars to that. And then as soon as I switched all mine to Fishman's for this new record, I didn't even bring extra guitars to try. I just brought my main guitar. I brought my main 7, my main 6, and my main drop 7. I said, let's go. We didn't even try one other guitar. We didn't even bother because we knew it was perfect.
Yeah, I'm not even scared the same way. Like, I'll grab a guitar with Fishman in it, and I'm totally. I know for a fact that, like, I had a Les Paul, and you'll appreciate this. Like, Gibson sent me a VOB Les Paul aged. It was like this beautiful guitar, and I swore to myself I'd never change the pickups out. But when I did the experiment at Fishman HQ, I was like, Larry Fishman was throwing out like $400, $600, $700 like ESP guitars up against my $5,000 Les Paul, and like those guitars were smoking it. So then I even have it in the studio right now, but I have like a $300 Roadstar Ibanez, and I put a Fishman Classic in it. And I remember I was going to record a record, and I was saying to myself, like, all right, there's no way that this $300 guitar is going to beat this $5,000 guitar, right? So I started playing, and it's all different woods. Like, this is basswood, and it's just whatever. It's not the greatest sounding guitar, but it was smoking. It was smoking the Les Paul. And then I picked up the Les Paul. I started playing. I'm like, great. Now I have to hear this with Fluence in it. So I immediately like soldered the pickups in, and sure enough, that guitar sound, it was brought back to life.
Damn, so I need to do that with my old customs, because all my old customs, none of these have Fishmans in them. Yeah. And I never play them. I need them all to have them in there. I got to do it.
I'll send you some open core classics if you want, like the Gibson vibe, because those have like the PAF in voice 1 and then the over.
I'd rather just go for what you got me in the first place. Those are perfect. Moderns? The moderns, man, they're just the best. I have 2. I wish all my other Aristides had Fishmans, but because they're slanted, they don't fit in the cavity or something. Yeah. There's some reason they don't fit. But I have one 070 with the Abasi pickups and an 060 with the kill switch pickups. Those sound ridiculous. Yep. And I wish I could fit them in all of my guitars, but my multi-scales I can't yet. Maybe someday we'll figure that out.
Someday we'll have some multi-scale offerings for Fishman, and
that'll be good.
Actually, it's probably a good time to start announcing. Like, I mean, we've been working on a custom pickup with you. You have a cool design. Do you have that guitar anywhere?
It's not in because my tech since the lockdown, but I've got the pickups right here.
Yeah. Hold the pickups up. Show people. Matt Heafy is about to show in real time a special set of pickups we made for him that we're most likely going to offer. most likely meaning we're gonna.
Oh, they're gonna happen, ladies and gentlemen. First time world debut, the Kiichi Fishmans.
Nice.
Ooh.
Custom series moderns. Basically, that's a real gold like little
that's 150 karat gold right there, boys and girls. No.
You can pull those off and pay your mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so what's gonna be awesome is we've discontinued all of my Epiphones, and we're relaunching all of them. All of them will have Fishmans. All of them. They will all have the Kiichi Fishmans in them. 6, 7, black, white, all non-Evertune and Evertune. So there's going to be 8. That's a little much. We're going to have Evertune and non-Evertune because I want to do both. Gibson also owns Kramer and Steinberger. So I'm also going to be doing a Kramer Super Strat, black, white, 6, 7, Evertune, non-Evertune. And we're also working on something for Steinberger because Steinberger was the first company to ever do headless. And there are so many amazing headless companies out there. Yep. So we're going to do something.
Yeah. So like that's a really cool project.
Now. I am basically Kiss of metal. Too much shit. I've got lunch boxes with my face on. I've got underwear. I've got baby diapers. It's all for sale right here. Matt.com.
Yeah, but the cool part about how you approached us was that, okay, so as an A&R guy, I'll disclose this. Every single guy wants a signature product, right? Because it elevates their profile. And that's all well and good, but there's no need for it. Especially like Fishman has a couple things covered. And if you're truly designing a pickup from the ground up, obviously we'll facilitate that and we'll offer it to the world. But there's not a lot of guys that are looking for something completely different. And sure enough, like Toast Nabasi's pickups are totally different. Will Adler's are totally different. I mean, these guys really designed brand new pickups that no one's ever heard before. Mm-hmm. But when I approached you about it, I was like, listen, if you like these moderns, they're cool. If you want something else, we could probably redesign it. And you were like, no way. This is what I want to play. And you're just like me. Like a lot of people have asked me before Fishman was anything, like Fluent, sorry. They were like, how come you don't have a signature product? And I'm like, because I work on the development team. Every single one of these is my signature product, They all sound good and they've all had my ears on. And it's cool that you weren't like that. You weren't like, I don't need a signature product, but we're going to put out a custom series, which is just as good as signature. It's just that it's a design change. It's cool. Exactly.
Yeah. Because like the way I like to look at things, if something is great, why change it? Like I love the pickup so much, so I don't want to change the EQ because it's perfect. Same thing with my signature guitar. I think the Les Paul is a perfect instrument. It's just subtle aesthetic tweaks, a little bit of playability for the guitar, but then the pickups, it's the gold and the availability of it being something, like you said, a custom MKH thing. Same thing with my pickup, my pick itself. It's the Jazz 3. It's not the Jazz 3 reinvented. It's the Jazz 3 with max grip, a different color, and there you go.
Your picks don't have cool logos like Ken Susi with the couple chicks on it.
They do not. I need one of those. Just the kanji.
Oh, nice.
It's got Ki and Ichi.
See, my thing was we went on tour with Dimebag, and he was playing these picks, and I would always see his guitar tech sitting there with a knife carving his picks out. So I started playing these guys because of him. I used to carve my picks too as well. Now
Corey would use a dart, and I was like, man, just get freaking grip built in.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool, but yeah. Do you want to before we take off? Do you want to show us a little bit about your pickups?
Absolutely. Turn your headphones down. I don't know how loud it's going to be for you yet. We'll get it started.
Okay, we'll figure it out. You're fine.
All right, that should be feeding. I have not tested it yet through Discord.
Before you play it too, you need to meet up. Before you start playing, you need to meet up with Craig, the bass player of Sick of It All. He has the same kind of like strap design as you, like where it goes through the bass and then one behind his bass because he has a bad back.
Dude, I love this thing. Like so many musicians were pissed about this. They're like, what is that thing? Why would anybody ever do that? But like my thing is like, why kill your left shoulder even more? And so like, I think it looks pretty sweet. With some of the early models that we did with Richter, it looked like I looked like the bass player of Rammstein on the Live House Berlin. And I was like, that's not going to work, dude. This is too much. It was like a wearable. But this is great because like it's not 50-50. It's like a 70-30, 60-40 weight split. So you can hear the guitar? Okay, sweet. Because I can't hear it anymore because I have to monitor with those headphones. Because what my rig is just like I've got a live essentially mixed like a live DVD session on my Mac, and I feed that into a PC, and the PC is what streams it out. So the tone today is MXR 6-band EQ with just a little bit of cuts, the Eris TS preamp Boss NS2 into a 6534, Box of Doom, Redback, left and right, SM57, Fishman Moderns, and my signature guitar that is now discontinued. Okay, so main rhythm tone, active mode. I love the option of having both. I remember when you first told me that, I was pretty blown away. The more passive sounding mode. But yeah, for the rhythm stuff, it sounds more like me than ever. So I guess I'll do a breakdown of one of my favorite picking patterns for everybody, since it's talking a little about guitar stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of guitar players don't focus enough on rhythm, I feel. There's so many people now that are so much emphasis on lead and about being super shreddy, and there's just like the rhythm playing is kind of going by the wayside a little bit, and you see a lot of people that think of just down picking or just alternate. And what I'd like to do, this was sort of developed from Sound of Perseverance era Death and Martyr, this French-Canadian tech death jazz band that I'm obsessed with. But it's the picking pattern is down, 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 up, down. That's the pattern. And the way I do the pattern so that very slow down, 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 up, down. And it's just I think that kind of fusing or making little hybrid versions of alternate and standard picking is much more fun than normal.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
I try to. And that's another song where I use that. That kind of stuff. And you can see that the articulation is so in with these pickups. And it's crazy. I don't know how to describe this. I haven't figured out a good way to articulate this, but since using like the old head that we used to use to record with these pickups and our real cab, real speaker, I feel like I'm playing more like me than I've ever played.
Yeah.
That's like kind of the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like a lot of people too, like you could only talk pickup so much. It's like at some point you have to just grab a guitar and play it and feel the mojo that comes off of the guitar while you're playing it. Because you know how it is. Like there's guitars that you grab that inspire you to play, especially when they sound good and they feel good. And then there's ones that stink and you play it for like 20 minutes and you drop it. Mm-hmm. With all my pickups with Fluence, if the guitar's set up well, I'm like, I'll sit there and play it for hours, and I'm sure you do the same.
Oh yeah, I can't believe this one keeps beating everything out, but it's like you said, it's like when you've got like the right gear in it, it could beat anything out. Like it'll beat guitars that are 5 times the cost of this guitar, and that's pretty nuts. Nuts.
It's about having like a level playing field and then taking the woods versus hearing the difference in the pickups and also dealing with the woods of the guitar. Mm-hmm. So you're taking one of those elements out. At least you know the pickups are consistent.
Yep.
Yeah. So
cool. I should go over a couple more little rhythm things for the viewers in here. I'm trying to figure out which one to really show. A riff that a lot of guitar players have a difficult time with is a song called Suffocating Sight that I like a lot, but the pattern isn't super difficult. It's just using that sort of fusion rhythm picking. The verse. So that pattern is What makes that thing work is the alternate down up. So down up, down up, down up, down, down up, down. Then a down pick with a hammer on, and an up pick with a down pick. That's sort of where it trips up a lot of guitar players. I've met some guys who are like, I love that riff. I use that sort of as a warm up, but they're always missing that little articulation. And then articulation only comes from things being super tight and super focused, and it's really necessary. If it's overgained or noisy or cluttered, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the best part of the Fluence pickups is that there's clarity all over the place. It's a wide spectrum, so it's really cool. And I'm convinced. We were talking about like Dimebag too as well. Like he used to use two blades, but an active sounding pickup. It like bladed version of an active kind of thing. And I think he would have loved these pickups. And obviously, you could tell Voice 2 is very Pantera. Voice 1 is very like classic, like Metallica sounding, like but better.
Yeah. I love the pulled version for low tunings. Like, and I love the voices that Tosin will do with stuff that's like a kind of clean distortion, but it's still really nasty. It gets that open coil sound. That's one of my favorite tones. Where originally I was talking to you about doing that for mine, but I feel like my guitars, it doesn't make sense because we don't do that in Trivium. That's more something I do with like 8-string stuff for just myself. But that tone is so fun.
Well, it became very obvious too. Like, so as you go up in scale length, like, you go 6 to 7, 7 to 8, and, 8 and beyond, right? We found that Fluence actually worked better, whereas other pickups don't work better, but Fluence worked better as you went into lower tunings. There was more articulation. The first time we ever put these things in front of Stephen Carpenter, obviously he was playing like 7 and 8 strings. It was like he was in the studio and his producer was like, I can hear every note. And even the note separation between big inverted chords were all there versus like when you play on a pickup and you play like an open G or a big inverted chord, you start missing strings in between.
Yeah, because I love like augmented chord shapes, or like I love black metal. And yes, old school black metal is supposed to sound kind of bad and screechy, but I want it to sound good and articulated. Like these minor chords or these kinds of like. And it always has all the articulation, which is so important. Or even things like it's very impressive that it sounds good, whether I'm doing super articulated, chuggy, picky stuff or high strum stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's actually cool, not to change the topic, but Larry Fishman himself is watching the feed right now.
That's amazing. I love your pickup so much.
Yeah. He's like, your audio wasn't working. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, that happens. But yeah, no, so many, like my phone, I haven't even been looking at it, but it's been blowing up. Tons of artists right now saying hi, just being like, oh my God, Matt Heafy, can't believe he's using Fluence. Unbelievable. So this is great.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, the tone speaks for itself. Like I could talk about it and tell you how much I love it, but like our super tone riffs, stuff like this sounds unbelievable, these pickups. Or yeah, it just works for everything. I love it. I love it.
That's awesome. And even
oh, cut out.
You guys ever?
Cut
Can you hear me?
Bit. Yep.
Okay. I was gonna say I'm not expecting you to play clean, but just for those of you that have tried Fluence or you're gonna try Fluence out, try the modern pickups out on clean, because the cool thing is about the modern pickups is that like in voice one you're getting an active sound, but like and you start playing an active sound is not technically the greatest clean sound there is, but once you go to voice two, it gives you that passive feel and
I might not have this amp-EQ'd for clean. Let me
don't yeah. I wouldn't expect you to. You're a cowboy like me.
Let me check. Double headphones. This is what I
nice.
I have that super gate on there for the distortion stuff. That's the gate eating it. That's with no effects or anything, and it sounds. I love it.
That's really cool.
Guys like you and I don't use clean much.
I use one channel and a boost. That's it.
Yes. That's all we need.
Yeah. as what is it? Mike Schleibaum always says, he's like, I'm at the point in my career where I just borrow gear now. I don't even want to bring my own gear. So he's like, you can make anything sound good. I'm like, yeah, I use one channel. Doesn't matter. That's awesome.
Those early years of touring, yeah, I used one as well.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Exactly. Doesn't matter. But listen, Matt, thank you so much for being on. Hosting us on your Twitch page. Obviously, this is going to also be moved over to the Fishman YouTube and Facebook later on when Matt gives us a file.
Yep.
So again, thank you for spending time with us, and obviously, we'd love to do more stuff with you in the future. And
anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah, anything you ever need, let us know. So,
awesome.
Guys, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you so
very much, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you very much, man. You take care. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, man.